Somebody asked me recently, what do you wish someone would have told you about relationships before you were a Christian? And that was really an important question because I didn't become a Christian until I was 24, and I started in relationship at age 15. So that's a big gap. And so that question is really, really important. Well, why are you here? That's kind of what I'm thinking, and I have a lot of thoughts as to why you're here. Some of you are here because this is what you do on Thursday night. You come to Vintage and you sing and you hear some teaching. Others of you are coming here specifically to hear about relationships. Probably most of you have a thought that someday you're going to be married. And you want to be married, and you want to be in a happy, lifelong, and purposeful marriage. Some of you, that's really not even on your radar. You're not even thinking about that right now, and you're not even sure that you will get married, and you're not sure, and you're not sure that that's the direction you're going to go. And you're asking the question, maybe, is that okay? Is that okay if I do that? Some of you may be thinking, okay, God, where do you fit into this? This if I get married, or who do I marry, or when should I get married? And where do I move in these things? When do I make some of these movements? And God, what's your will in some of these things? And so we're going to address a lot of these things as we go through. You see on the handout, there's some foundational scriptures that I've written down, and the last one is, and many more. But the ones I wrote down there are ones that are really pivotal in a lot of what I'm going to discuss over this time. But also a lot of what I'm going to share is my thoughts, my opinion, my experiences. I've been married for 34 years, have 3 children. They're all married and they're in Christ-centered, happy marriages. But I will say all 4 of these marriages took very different routes. And some of that will come out as we talk over the next 3 weeks. My wife and I have also been in counseling situations with many married couples, and some of them in just extremely horrible situations. So a lot of what I'm going to share comes out of that. I've also talked to a lot of people who are dating. We've done some premarital counseling. We've talked to people who are just trying to figure out relationships. So we've had a lot of experiences. And so I'm going to bring a lot of that into this as well. That question again was, what do you wish someone would have told you about relationships before you were a Christian? And I had an initial response, and I kind of held on to it for a minute, and I thought about it. And the answer came back the same. Nothing. I didn't want to know what anybody else thought about relationships. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so that's really the way I went about it, because I was very mature when I started my dating relationship. You can see that up here. I was very mature. It'll be here shortly. That is not the right one. You know, I knew I'd hear that comment. You want hair? Go to the other one, Jay. How about that? Is it better? Okay. Back in the 70s. Okay. So I was mature. So I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do. And so really, I admire you, because I know better now. I know better now. I needed to ask some questions. And so you guys are here, and whether you're real excited about it or not, I don't know. But the idea of learning some things is going to be a good thing for you. I remember I asked for one piece of advice, and I really can't think of any other pieces of advice. I got a few other, nuggets that were given to me, but I only pursued one, and that was my girlfriend and I had been dating for a couple months. Remember, I was a sophomore in high school. She was a junior, and so I asked a senior in high school. I asked a senior, an older man. I said, I want to start this relationship, and back then we called it going steady. I said, I want to go steady. What do I give her? He said, give her a ring. He said, but don't spend too much because you don't know if it's going to last. Now, she does still have that $15 ring that I bought her, but that was the only piece of advice that I ever sought out. So again, I commend you for asking some questions and coming to something like this. What we're going to focus on two areas. We're going to focus on independent and wedded. And when I talk about independence, I'm talking about not in a romantic relationship. Okay? So if you're in that independent phase of life, there's just no connection right now. If you're a guy with a girl with a guy, there's just no romantic relationship. There's friendships and fellowship, there's all that stuff, but there's not a romantic relationship. That's what I'm going to use as the definition of independent. But we're also going to look at the transition between independent and wedded, and those are dating, or if you want to call it courtship, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about dating, and we're going to talk about engagement as well. I was walking through McAllister's one day, and just passing through, and I heard this conversation between this guy and the gal was saying, no, that's not what I want. I want a meaningful relationship. And you know what? The definition of relationship, or meaningful relationship, is quite different. So I'm going to use this working definition. Relationships are expressions of love at various levels of intimacy. Relationships are expressions of love at various levels of intimacy. You see, relationships, we're not just, when you talk about relationship, you're not just talking about marriage and all that stuff. It applies in your home when you're dealing with your mom, your dad, or your brothers and sisters, or your roommates, your classmates. You have a relationship with me, and I may not even know your name. You have a relationship with the person across the room and the person sitting next to you. But they're all at different levels of intimacy. And love is part of what God has in mind for working through those relationships. One thing about this is that a Christian relationship should look different than the world. It just should look different. Had a young man make a statement. He was rooming with about 4 or 5 other guys, non-Christian guys. And when he started his dating relationship with his now wife, he said, you watch, you're going to see something that you've never seen before. And that's really the way it should be. Our relationships at all levels in the Christian, as a Christian should be unique and different than the world. Well, let's dive in and look at what's cool about being independent. Is there anything cool about being independent? Of course there is. And I think the first thing is freedom. You're able to be really flexible and spontaneous, right? You can pick up and go at a moment's notice. I had a guy that, I'll say it this way. My son drove halfway across the country to North Carolina to pick his sister up and drive her 100 miles, and then he drove home by himself again because he was available. He said, I can do that. Now that's crazy, but I think some of you guys have done some crazy things. Hey, let's go to Colorado this afternoon, or let's go to New Mexico, or hey, let's go to Arkansas. Let's sleep in the car and get up and have some fun the next day, right? You guys are free, you're available and flexible, and that's a great thing. You're also cheap. When you're just taking care of yourself, you can live cheap. It doesn't cost much to take care of one person. You don't have to try to impress anybody. You can just get by on little. That's a marvelous thing. You can study abroad, right? How easy is it to take that class? And I'm going to do this in Germany. There's somebody here going to go to Germany here pretty soon. Just because you're available and you're free, you've got fewer ties. Those are a good thing. In 1 Corinthians 7:35, Paul makes a statement. He says, and then I say for your benefit, not to put a restraint on you, because he's talking about and he's encouraging them to stay single, to stay independent, if you will. And he says, and this I say for your own benefit, not to put a restraint on you, but to promote what is seemly and to secure undistracted devotion to the Lord. The independent time is a time of undistracted devotion to the Lord, or at least it can be. And that's exactly what Paul is encouraging right here. Nobody is dependent on you. And I know that's not totally true, because we may have family members that are dependent on us. We may have some responsibilities at work, but in general, in an independent state, don't have the people who dependent on us, and therefore we can do some pretty extreme things. And especially you can do some extreme things for the Lord. You think about some of the missionaries that go into some very dangerous places. It's much easier to do that when you're independent than it is with a family. Okay? It's just that freedom. There's some marvelous things in that independent stage. But what about wedded? Is there anything exciting, good, and great about being wedded? Of course there is. One of the things is that closeness, that friendship that's there. There's an intimacy, a companionship that is there, and that you can share anything with one another. Now, are all marriages like that? No, but that's what we're going to try and encourage and try to be able to build. It takes some work, but the idea is you can have a friendship and a companion that's very close to you. But I don't want to miss anything when I talk about the fact that something that's great about the marriage relationship is the physical relationship. If you look all through Scripture, all through life, one of the biggest draws that pushes, pulls, whatever, somebody into a marriage relationship is the physical. We can't deny it. It's definitely there. And it's also there, and what we want to encourage and to promote and all that is to have it with no guilt. The physical relationship with no guilt is a marvelous thing. It's marvelous. But it's also time. This marriage, this wedded time frame is a time of where you can become more like Christ. You know, and you're saying, well, I can do that when I'm independent. There's something different in the relationship of marriage that kind of knocks off all the edges. You're helpmates in this relationship, and that's actually helping you become more like Christ. There's a statement in the book called Sacred Marriage, and it says this. It says, if you want to serve Christ, stay single. If you want to be like Christ, get married. And we'll talk about some of those things. You may not have thought about that. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. Let's move on to dating. What's great about dating? Is there anything great about it? It's just fun and cool. The emotional plus there is incredible because it's an emotional high. It's very wonderful to be wanted. It's wonderful. It's an emotional strength and excitement that's going on there. I love it because I like to watch guys. Because when guys get into this, they just go nuts. Their brains go out the window and they're goofy. I love that. I think it's just downright cool. But it's also a time where both guys and gals get scared. So the emotions are all over the board. It's also a time of growing up. Because what you've added to the independent life is you've added responsibility. You've added somebody who cares about you and is counting on you in various ways. So there's a maturity that happens. It shows up in your dress and your manners and in handling responsibility. So it's definitely a good thing from that standpoint. There's also something that happens is a conversation begins. And you'll see in this early dating especially, you'll see talking and listening going on. I was at a restaurant, a coffee shop recently, and I just started cracking up. Because I was sitting there, I was looking over here, and here's was obviously young love sitting here at the table, and the guy and the gal, and the gal's just talking away, and she's looking up and just talking, and the guy's just staring right at her and smiling and laughing, just smiling and nodding, just smiling and nodding. It was just hilarious. But what's interesting is one of the biggest complaints in marriage, especially from a woman, is he doesn't listen to me. You see why this is a great time? You can learn some things. If you really learn how to listen and engage in a conversation, we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. There's just some great things about this dating time. What about engagement? Is there anything cool about engagement? One of the biggest ones is there's an end to your singleness. Because a lot of us, we want to get married. We're looking forward to that day. When you get to that engagement time, it's almost done. I'm almost married. I'm almost to that place that I've been desiring for a long time. You can go deeper into intimacy in the emotional and spiritual areas. You can talk at a level that you haven't been able to communicate at before. But your heads are still in the clouds. You're the guy or the gal in your relationship is still wrong. You still got these rose-colored glasses on, and it's still a great time. That's why we do premarital counseling, and then we tell them to come back a year later. Because your heads kind of come out of the clouds at that time. But you also set your clock on your phone or on your watch, and it starts counting down in the minutes and the second. I've seen people do that. That's pretty cool. So I got 1 hour, 14 days, 32 hours, whatever. All right, let's move on into focus, because this is where I want to spend the most time. Is what's your focus supposed to be? What should it be? What can it be in each one of these phases? And we're going to go back to the independent stage. And what should you be thinking about and focusing on while you're here? And I want to talk about this. In no phase of life should we be just hanging out. I'm just kind of hanging out, buying time, kind of looking forward to the next stage. Just kind of, someday this is going to move on to something else. We don't want to be like that. We want to be purposeful in every phase of life. And I'm going to talk about this in independent stage in two pieces. And I want to talk about, first of all, if my eyes are forward, meaning I'm looking forward. I don't have a distraction of a girlfriend or boyfriend or just somebody who's kind of shaking my chain, if you will. You know, they walk in the door and you know that, you know, and you just know they're there. I'm talking, let's start first of all saying that's not happening. I'm just really focused. Okay, let's start with that. What should your focus be there? And obviously, given the passage we read from Paul, that undistracted devotion to the Lord, the whole idea of spiritual growth, of ministry, the opportunities are great. Think about it. Most of you are in college or in school of some sort right now. Your focus should be education. You should be really focused on what you're doing. Learn what you're going to school for. You're not just piddling. Do it. You're going. Be focused in it. There's a passage in Proverbs 24:27. It says, prepare your work in the field and then build your house. And that's that idea. It's like I'm out plowing my field. And you're in college. The idea is you're plowing your field. You're preparing things for later on. I'm going to work in the field and get it, and then I'm going to build a house. And that may mean physically build a house, or it may be that relationship part of a house, of a home. Okay, so do that work in the field. Don't neglect it. But there's also a lot of growth that goes on and should be going on. It should be your focus in this independent time. You should be growing spiritually. It's unforgivable, I guess, if you don't. You just get at it. You got a lot of time and opportunity and freedom. And one of them is trusting God. If you think about what's faith, it's trusting God. And in this area of who is my spouse going to be, that trust is definitely a needed aspect. You're going to get to know God as trustworthy when you go through this. And so really focus on that spiritual growth. Trust God for your spouse, but also for all other areas of your life. And it's just a good time to really focus on the spiritual growth. But what about financial growth? I mean, a lot of you guys are saying, I'm so broke. I can't, how can I? Think about this statement. Learn how to manage nothing, because those who have a lot still have nothing because they don't know how to manage it. Okay, I messed that up. Let me say it again. Learn how to manage nothing, because those who have a lot still have nothing because they don't know how to manage it. You get what I'm saying? The people who have a lot of money and they're broke, and that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. It's because they don't know how to manage it. You learn how to manage little. Be faithful with a little bit. And then when you have a lot, you'll be managing it well and you'll be way ahead. So don't wait to get a budget until you're married and have 3 kids. Start now. You guys should be on a budget and know what your income is, know what your expenses are. Keep track of things. Okay? Learn how to manage money while you're independent. I talked to a young married guy just a couple weeks ago. He said, I wish I would have taken that advice. He's just a few weeks into marriage, and now he's trying to learn it. It's an important part. During this time of independence, it's also a time of emotional healing, because a lot of us have gone through pain of some sort. Okay? And up until this time, especially in the young adult time, up until this time, we've just stuffed it. We've pushed it aside, and God has given us the ability to just push it aside and not go there. And this is a time to go there. It's a time to seek out healing in the emotional hurts. Now, because the point is those things will affect future relationships. A lot of what we dealt with in marriage counseling came from early hurts, whether it be in that relationship or others. So this is a time to be pursuing that healing. I'm going to change direction a little bit. In 1 Corinthians 7, Paul points out how some people are gifted to be single. Again, I will very clearly say most of you have every desire to get married, but a few God has chosen to be single all their life. And He's gifted them in a certain way to do this. And I want to read out of Matthew, because I want to read Jesus' words the way He put it. Out of Matthew chapter 19, starting in verse 10. And there's a discussion going before this, and we'll talk about that in the coming weeks. So just kind of allow me to pick up in the middle of a sentence here. The disciples said to Him, if the relationship of the man with his wife is like this, it is better not to marry. But Jesus said to them, not all men can accept this statement, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born that way from their mother's womb, and there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs by men. And there are also eunuchs who made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He who is able to accept this, let him accept it. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of that by any means, but he's saying that God has created some people with the ability, without that drive, that urge, that need to be in union with a husband or a wife. Some of them are born that way. That's the way God created them. Others are made that way by men in cruel ways. But there's also that fraction of people who choose that. They have the ability of self-control and discipline to where they set aside the earthly desires of a spouse for the focus on the kingdom of heaven. But I'll say, all through Scripture, it's a very small portion. And when you go out and ask people, are you gifted to be single? No way, I want to get married. It's very few, but they do exist. And God has gifted them special. So if you're like that and you're getting all this pressure of I got to get married because everybody else is, no, get your eyes on the Lord. Because He may have chosen you for this special purpose, because you can live your life with an undistracted devotion to the Lord. Not very many, but a few. But all of us, and whether you're in the independent stage and want to be married, you're independent and you don't really have a desire to get married, or you're married or engaged, whatever, you're going to need contentment. It's something you just got to learn. And I just totally encourage you to learn it early. Because it's needed in marriage, and it's needed at my age. So learn it as early, but it's very, very important in the independent stage while you're waiting for the Lord to provide that spouse. I'm going to use 1 Corinthians 13 to kind of identify some things about love, because 1 Corinthians 13 is a love chapter, and I'm going to talk about two aspects of love in each one of the sections. And so in the area of independence, I want to start with love is patient. And you go, duh. Because you're in this waiting stage, and you're just kind of waiting around. But that's love. Have you ever thought about that? I love my future spouse enough to be patient and wait on the Lord. I love the Lord enough, and I'm going to be patient with Him on the timing. So love is patient. In this time, it's really important to seek God. Seek Him. Remember that passage, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you? Of course, he's talking about food and clothing in there. Do you think it doesn't apply to something like your future spouse? Of course, God cares about you in that way. I'll say this, too. When you're talking about seeking God, let's try to talk in ideas of seeking fellowship instead of intimacy at this independent stage. And we're going to talk about that more next week. But think about that. Seek fellowship rather than intimacy. When you're seeking God, bring gratefulness in it. You think probably the biggest factor in being content is gratefulness. Lord, thank you for where I am. Thank you for what I have. Thank you for the friends I have. Just being grateful both to God and to those around you. It increases contentment, and contentment is peace and joy. Obviously, in this seeking God, there's going to be service to others as well. Really look at how you can serve God through serving others. Now, one thing I want to say, though, busyness is not contentment. A lot of times we just try to get through this phase, so we just get busy. That's not the same thing. Contentment is in the heart, in the spirit. And it's a relationship with God that it's at peace. Now, am I saying this is easy? No, I'm not saying this is easy. It's all about disciplining yourself for the purpose of godliness. Now, let me even back up a little bit and say, I have no authority over you. I can't tell you what to do. And I've talked to several people. I don't want to tell me what to do in this. I don't have anything to tell you what to do. All I'm trying to do is just lay some things out for you to consider. Pick what you want to pick out of all this. Just consider these things. The idea, my desire for you, as it was for my children, was I want you to be able to go through this with as little pain, with as much success, and as much happiness and joy and purpose as you can have. Okay, so I'm going to lay a bunch of things out like I'm doing here. You got to decide whether you're going to take it or not. Okay? Think about that. The other passage out of 1 Corinthians 11 that applies in the area of independent is love does not seek its own. Love does not seek its own. The way I entered my dating relationship and my marriage was selfish. So I'm talking from experience here that Not seeking your own would be a better way. Okay? Because I entered into it very, very selfishly, and most of us do. We want a spouse for us. And so learning right now to not seek your own, which is demonstration of love in your roommates, with your roommates, your brothers and sisters, whatever, is going to help you in the marriage relationship. It's very, very important in all aspects of life. Love does not seek its own. And I tell you, one of the areas where you can tell, kind of an indicator as to whether or not you're doing very well in this, if you have your eyes on you gals, if you have your eyes on a guy, or you guys have your eye on a gal, and then they get into a relationship with somebody else, how does it affect you? They didn't choose you. Is it all full of jealousy and envy, where you want to get back at that other one, you don't like them, and you see what I'm saying? That's seeking your own. And it's a test. And it's not the best one, it's hard, but that's the idea, is love does not seek its own. Now let me talk about in this independent stage where I am distracted. Where there's a girl that kind of I don't know how to deal with it. It's in my mind and it's affecting me. I have trouble sleeping at night. Okay, does this happen? Of course it happens. Same thing with a girl. She sees him. I'm trying not to get focused on it, but it's there, right? It's an amazing thing placed in us, and we're aware. I want to talk to the gal first, you girls, and this is an interesting area. You got to make some decisions here of how you're going to respond to things. Because are you going to be an initiator? If this guy is really interesting to you and it just doesn't go away, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to initiate? Are you going to try and get his attention? Or are you going to just go up, hey, you want to go out? You see, our culture is very much equal. It goes both ways. But if you look historically, whether it be biblical or American culture or any other culture, you see generally the most predominant is just a history of the gal waiting for the guy to initiate in various forms. And if you look in the Scriptures, when we jump forward into that marriage phase, you start dealing with things of headship out of 1 Corinthians 11 and in 1 Peter 3 and Ephesians 5. You talk about submission, and it's such a difficult topic in our culture. But if you would apply those here, what kind of investment is that in that future? There's an investment that goes forward in allowing the husband to be, possibly, to learn how to lead, to learn how to follow and be a support and a helpmate. These are some important things. It is what I encouraged my daughter to walk in. It is what I encouraged my sons to walk in, because it's not just one-sided. There's two sides to that. But I will also tell you that my wife initiated. My wife initiated. Like you saw that picture. That was the summer of 1975. Well, on March 12th, 1975, she said, we were in band in high school, okay? Remember, I'm a sophomore in high school, very mature. All right? And we're going on a band trip. I think we're going to Junction City, as a matter of fact. We were in Salina. We're going on a band trip, getting in the bus. She says, hey, Keaton, can I sit with you? Well, I'm 15 years old. I have no other bounds. I have made no other pre-ideas on how I was going to answer this question. I'm like, sure, of course. Inside, I'm just going nuts. You can imagine that, right? Because she wants to sit with me. Well, what I didn't know is there was another guy asking to sit with her, and she didn't want to sit with him. So she asked me to sit with me. It turned out okay, right? And you think you think the end justifies the means, right? And no. So I would definitely not. I made it very clear to my kids. I do not recommend this. We started at 15. No, I don't recommend this. All right. And what I want to encourage you to do is start writing a script. Because if I had thought about that beforehand, I would have responded differently. And you could say, well, but you'd messed up the relationship. Maybe not. Because you don't know what I might have been spared of, and my wife might have been spared from, had she not initiated and I not just gone with the flow. Again, think about writing a script of some things that, when I anticipate these things happening, I'm going to have this type of response. Now, I do say it's a script that's written on an open hand, meaning I'm going to change that script as I go through life. It's not, thus saith the Lord, in most cases. Some of it just, I think this would be a good protection for me, guys and gals. This is the way I think I'm going to do it. And that's what we did with our kids as they were being raised. I said, this is kind of the general idea of how I encourage you to go about it. Did they all walk that way? No. Okay. But we had something to start with. We had a conversation point. And when you talk about protecting yourself in various ways, especially the heart, these are really important things. And a lot of this is to get away from, and this is what I really want to get you to understand. You want to get away from making decisions in the heat of emotion. You want to get away from that. Because when you're emotional, you're stupid. Your brain's gone. I've been there. You want to make decisions when you're sane. And the way Bible puts it is sober. It's kind of like in that emotional high, I'm drunk. And God wants you to start making those decisions beforehand. And that's the idea of that script, is to do some things when you're away from the emotion. So when you are in that emotion, you can just enjoy it, and you have some idea of how you can go through it without making stupid mistakes. Just some ideas there. In this, you're also going to be getting all kinds of pressures from peers. And again, some of this script type of thing can help you in that way. And we're going to talk about that more next week. You're going to have these feelings. Remember I told you, when they walk in the room, they're going to, chain's going to rattle, whatever. You're going to have those feelings. You want to take your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. That's the application of Scripture. You're taking your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. And gals, I'm still talking with you a little bit. This guy's, you just like it, man. There's just something that's there. I think it's of the Lord. I'm not sure. Pray for him. And you're like, dude, yeah, you're right. I do pray for him. I'm praying that he'll be my husband. No, I want you to pray for his wife, who might not be you. Do you see how that stretches your faith? And do you see how that changes the relationship? Because you are praying. You might be praying for you. But then you're going to trust God in that. That's an amazing thing. Okay, I'm going to switch to you guys. Guys, let's say that girl comes in and you just can't get your mind off her. What I want you to do is just keep going. Set your mind, set your focus, and keep going on the things you're supposed to do. Keep on your school. Keep preparing your way in the field. Keep moving. Build up yourself in spiritual ways. Get on mission trips. Go on things. Keep moving. Be patient. And I've gotten to where I'll just say, 6 months minimum. Don't move on it for 6 months. Now, that sounds ludicrous, I know. But I've just been in so many different situations where just that 6 months would have calmed things down, would have made us see clearly and to be able to deal wisely. But you know what? Those guys are scared. Lord God, if I do that, if I wait 6 months, some other guy's going to come and get her. Do you see where the need for trust is? It's all over that. Be patient. Grow in your trust with God. Same thing I was teaching the girls. Now, this is also a time to say, am I ready to get married? Because in our culture, the idea is, am I ready to date? But the question I want you to ask yourself before you ever address that girl is, am I ready to get married? And there's a pamphlet on the back, Are You Ready to Get Married? By Rick Whitney. It's got good stuff in it. I'm not going to go through the details in it. It's good. There's another one called Rock Solid Relationships, just testimonies of some family and student, including the Brown family. Those are good things to say, am I ready to get married? Because you don't want to move on that relationship until you're ready to get married. I think that's just a very wise and protective way. And again, I want to say, guys, start praying for her. And pray for her husband, who might not be you. And that's going to help you deal with her in a right way, in a purity. Now, you got to, think about this. If you come into, you're at this point and maybe you come into a relationship and maybe they haven't been trained or taught or had any input on how they're going to do it. What if you guys are coming at it from two different ways? How do you deal with that? I'll talk about that next week. Let's move to wedded. Let's get out of this independent stage and let's jump all the way to wedded. And we're talking about what's the focus of being married. And you guys are like, why are we talking about this? I'm not there. There's a couple that are married. Well, first of all, it does apply to those that are married here. It does apply to those who are about to get married. But sometimes we have misconception of what marriage is all about. We either have rose-colored glasses thinking this is what it's going to be like, or we think it's horrible because of the examples we've seen. So I want to go through a few things that give you maybe some different idea. Deuteronomy 24. I'm going to talk in this marriage part. I'm going to break it up also and say that in this first year, think about the first year of marriage. Think about this passage, Deuteronomy 24:5. When a man takes a new wife, he shall not go out with the army, nor be charged with any duty. He shall be free at home 1 year, and shall give happiness to his wife, whom he has taken. Women, don't you love that verse? Don't you just love that? He's going to take a year, and he's going to make me happy. Now, is that what you hear when people talk about the Bible and about submission and the wife's role? No, it's not. But this is not just a proverb. This is not just a good idea. This is in God's law. And the whole society was built around this principle. And it wasn't just, we think about just in military standpoint, but he says, nor be charged with any duty. It might be like he didn't have any work at all. That's different. Maybe God has something in mind. And I want you to think about this first year of marriage as an investment for the future. If the husband is focused on the wife, bringing happiness to her for a whole year, how big of an investment is that in her trusting him to take care of her heart and her concerns when you get later on and he's trying to lead her and she needs to submit according to other passages that she's going to deal with as a married woman? Do you see that? Because that's the biggest concern women have in the fear of submitting is, I don't know what he's going to do with me. I don't know if he's going to take care of me. And if he can establish that trust in that first year, that seems to be what God's getting at. Now, how do we live this out in this culture? Because our society is not like this. You're in the army, you get married, you're going to Afghanistan anyway. And in our culture, many people get married right at the time they're getting deployed because they want the extra money. You see the misconnection? Now, I understand there's lots of different situations that come up, but the idea of really focusing, even if you have to go to work, go to the military, whatever, the intention is from God, is for us to focus on our wife for that year. That's a different model. I didn't know that when I got married. I was all focused on myself. But the more I think about this, I see the wisdom that God has here. Now, there's more that goes on in that first year because you get to know one another. You get to know one another in very intimately. And you also get to know yourself. I talked to a young married guy just a while back, just a couple weeks ago. Been married just maybe 3 weeks. And he said, when I was still single, it was kind of like I looked across the room, across the hall, into another room, and there was a mirror over there. And I could see myself in that mirror, and I could see some things that weren't very good. And I'm like, I need to work on those things here pretty soon. Someday I'm going to start working on that, but it's way over there. Well, now that you're married, it's like that mirror is right here. It's like, and you can't get away from it, and it's right in front of you, and it's showing you all of your negative attributes. And it's like, I got to work on this now. There's an urgency, and that happens day one of that marriage. Now, but think about, too, that the marriage is not just the first year. What happens the rest of your life? I've been married 34 years. I was in my first year for 1 year. So that means 33 years I've been living the rest of my life. Now the idea is, let's look at 1 Corinthians 13. Love is kind. You ever think about that, just being friends when you're married? Just being kind, nice to one another? You'd be amazed at the marriages that we know about and work with. They're just not nice to each other. And love is kind. Very simple thing. In the video series Love and Respect, which I'll encourage, and I'll mention several things as we go through here that are good resources, he makes a comment over and over again that to consider the goodwill of the other. Because you're going to hurt one another. But you need to consider the goodwill of the other person because it's not like they're getting up in the morning just trying to hurt you. But sometimes we get that idea when there's little hurts that happen. Love is kind. Let's look at another one. 1 Corinthians 13, love endures all things. And you guys, well, this is another one of those duh. Okay? If we're going to have a lifetime of marriage, there needs to be some endurance. And I want to get away from this thought of, okay, I'm just putting up with this. But I really want to get the idea of, no, this is good. I can deal with this. There's goodness, even in the hard things. Remember, it's knocking off the edges. Listen to this passage, or this quote from Mr. McLaughlin. It says, a successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person. I thought that was right. And we're going to talk about that some more, but there's an idea of needing to endure. There's going to be some things that aren't perfect in a relationship that lasts a lifetime. There's going to be some tough things, and you do have to endure. And you have to have an attitude of endurance. In the focus of the marriage, there's going to be focus on intimacy. I'll just touch on this tonight. It is the most intimate of relationships on earth. And there's emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, and spiritual intimacy. And when you get into the depth of that, you have oneness. But what happens typically in marriages is they focus on one area. Maybe it's physical, which is maybe the most common. They just get into the physical relationship, but they don't nurture the other ones. Or maybe it's all about making each other feel good. Maybe they are just friends, and they're just focused on the emotional. Or there's also those that get just totally focused on the spiritual. They're all about missions, and they're doing things in this, and they're really always praying and all that, but they're not taking care of the other needs, because we are needy people. God created us with needs, and He created somebody to meet those needs as far as an earthly relationship. And so the importance is to work on all three and take them all deep, to go to the depths of intimacy in all three areas. And that takes work. And that's definitely important. And it's definitely important, too, to complement one another. And I'm not talking about saying, oh, that's a nice dress. I'm not that kind of compliment. But the idea of being helpmates, where I have and we've been talking about spiritual gifts, that the husband has a strength, but he has a weakness. And the wife may have a strength that can prop him up, or in the same way, the other way. That we really complement one another. It's a time to focus on children. In the midst of a marriage relationship, children are going to be a part of it. You think God had that in mind when He said, be fruitful and multiply? Yeah. Should that be part of your thinking now? Because our culture has been talking to us about children. What kind of things have you been hearing and listening? Have you been listening to God? And I'll say this, and this is a bold statement. I'll give you something to think about. If you're not ready to have children, are you really ready to get married? Another thing that happens in the focus of marriage is a refining, a holiness. Again, we talked about the edges getting knocked off. We're growing in Christ. We're a picture of Christ in the church. This marriage is. But it also can attract the world to Christ. And I think that we can be a witness for Christ by having those kinds of marriages that are happy and fruitful, lifelong relationships, and be like a light on a hill to our society. They're saying, I want what they have, and we'll say, our Lord has helped us. Come and meet our Lord. I think it's a good point. Now I'm going to move to what's the focus of dating. You're probably wondering again why we went on Wedded, because that's important. It's where we spend most of our life. We're either going to be an independent or in that wedded state, but it's this transitional time of dating. First of all, I want to say it's cultural. It's not biblical. It's part of our culture. And that's an important thing to know. It's not wrong, just something that's there. And I'm not talking about the recreational dating of in and out. I'm talking more of a guy and a girl get interested in each other and they move into a dating relationship with the purpose of moving to marriage. You know that in olden times, and really not in many other cultures right now, they just go right from today, they don't even know each other, and tomorrow they're husband and wife through prearranged marriages and stuff like that. And that sounds, boy, I'm glad I don't have to do that. I don't want my parents picking my spouse. But, think about a lot of our prayer is, God, pick my spouse for me. Lead me to him. Lead me to her. Okay? And so the idea that it's cultural is very important. And it's important because you're probably not going to go home someday and, hey, Dad, I met the guy I want to marry. We're getting married tomorrow. You're just not going to do that. Culturally, you're going to rock some boats. Okay? So we're going to go through some type of a time frame. Call it dating, call it courtship, whatever you want to do. And I want to start right at the beginning and say just the question, meaning the question has been asked. are you interested in starting a relationship? Or however you want to say that word. That question is going to come out. And again, I'm going to go to the gal. I think you should have a script ready to speak. When a guy asks you the question, whether it be a guy you've been watching or it be a guy just out of the blue, you should have the answer. And it should be something like, I'll get back to you in a day or a week, 6 months. Come back to me in 3 months. Go ask my dad. No, never. No, maybe, sometime. You see what I'm getting at? You should have an answer ready. Because you're sane when you're thinking about it right now. When he walks through that door, it's going to rattle you. Okay? Have something ready. And again, I like something to buy me a little bit of time to deal with that. And that ask my dad idea, what if he's already asked your dad? Then go back to, give me 3 days. Okay? Don't make the decisions on emotions. Make them insanity. Don't change your Facebook status. Okay? Tweet what the purpose of this is. The purpose of this time in dating is to decide whether this person is the one you want to spend the rest of your life with. You're trying to determine that. You can say a lot of other things about it. If you're just saying, no, this is the person I want to marry, and we're just buying time, then you really got into the relationship a little early. Okay? And if you're ready to get married, then just get engaged. Just skip the whole dating part. Because this is going to be tough. It is a difficult time. You may think it's all glorious. It's a difficult time. Okay? Think about the purpose of dating. It's to determine if this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with or not. And if you think about that purpose, then it kind of puts some bounds and some purpose and guidance and focus into the relationship of what you're doing during this time. Now, I knew a gal, she had a list of 50 things. She had an interview set up for this guy when she was ready. She didn't know who it was going to be, but she had this list of 50 things. I think this might be a little excessive. Probably intimidated the guy a little bit. But she did. She came, the guy finally asked, and she had these 50 questions. She sat him down. She asked him these 50 questions. She had the answers, by the way. Okay? The question was, does he? And it's okay. There are some things that should be on your list. I don't care if you have one thing on your list. You should have something. Both guys and gals should have some kind of criteria, if you will, what you're looking for, what you're expecting. Is she a Christian? Is he a Christian? When God says, don't be unequally yoked with non-believers, that's a serious thing. Now, can you marry somebody who's not a believer? Yes, you can, but do you understand the effect? Because God lets us do a lot of things. But there are things to look for. What are you kind of evaluating and placing on your list for that? And think about this idea. You're in this new relationship. You haven't really told anybody. Maybe you've told one or two friends, a couple counselors, not just spreading the word to everybody, but you've talked to a couple people to help you through this. And maybe an older couple to help you kind of see clearly and see your way. I think it's very wise. You don't have to spread it out because you're still trying to decide if this is the person you want to spend the rest of life with. And if the answer is no, you don't want to have to go tell all your Facebook friends about that. Just keep it to yourself and work it out and ask those questions. Think about this. I mean, you're going to have a lot of different things when you talk about, is this person, for example, what if you have some differences? Like you want to have 5 children or more, and the person who you're now in this relationship only wants 1. How are you going to deal with that? There's going to be a discussion, obviously. You're going to talk about that thing. That's part of, you remember that listening and talking? You know, that's going to be going on. There should be a conversation about things like that. But yet, now you've got a difference. You've got to consider these things. Are you willing to change your desire in order to have the relationship? If the answer is yes, you can continue. You might have, remember, he only wants 1. I'll say this in this way. The guy only wants 1, the girl wants 5. Then the girl's going to say, okay, I'll only have 1 then. I'm willing to give on that. Now, you might end up having 5. Okay? You understand that. But you have to give it up, or it'll torment you later on. Do you understand that? If the answer is no, meaning you're not willing to compromise on that, you're at a crossroads. You have to figure out what to do with that. You may go into more conversation, but it may also be an indication. And again, I'm just using this as an example. There'll be many different things that you'll run into. At that crossroads, you have to decide, am I willing, because I don't want to compromise in this area, this must not be the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and you step out of the relationship. First Corinthians 13 comes into the play in the area of courtship. Love does not take into account a wrong suffered. Okay? Love does not take into account a wrong suffered. Do you get the idea? The closer relationship gets, the more chance there is of hurt. And it may be he just forgot my birthday or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be huge things, but they hurt emotionally. Okay? Love does not take into account a wrong suffered. What does that mean? That means she hurt me, he hurt me, and I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to have that conversation and talk about that hurt, but I'm not going to take into account. I'm not going to leave it on the shelf and continue to bring it up each time something new happens. I do not take into account a wrong suffered. I dealt with it, and it's gone. It's an important thing to learn during this time, because now is when you're going to be getting some hurt coming in. And one thing I want to, listen to this, in the midst of being hurt by this person, remember your evaluation. What's your purpose in this time? To say, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? In the midst of being hurt by this person, do I have in me an undying love for them? Do I have an undying love for them? Because remember the enduring part? I've got to have something that's going to endure. And remember that love is a choice. It's not just an emotion. And one of the most important things in this dating time when hurt happens, make sure you get to where you can share it and talk about it within the relationship. If you get hurt and the other person does not allow you to talk about that and to work it out, to resolve it, that's a dangerous thing for the future of your marriage. Learn how to do that during this dating time. Now, what if you get to this point and you say, oh, yeah, he did all 50 questions, I'm good, here we go. I think this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. What do? How do you proceed? First of all, you're not focused on physical. You don't want to focus on physical during this time. It railroads, just messes up the relationship. As long as you're in this dating time, you're in a time of evaluation, and you'll see habits and things like this. Is this a habit I can live with the rest of my life? Don't think that you can change the person. So many people go into marriage and saying, well, he's got all these bad things or she's got all these bad things, but I'll work on her and it'll be all fixed when they get married. No. What you get when you get married is what it is. Don't think about, I always had this saying, and my daughter and my son-in-law heard it all the time, he's not who he will be. Okay? I am not the man that was in that picture, that 15-year-old. Okay? You are not who you will be, but you are marrying who he is or who she is. If he has some habit or she has some habit when you get married, you can't get complaining about it later on. You accepted it at the time. You may be a help in it, but you can't say, wow, you got to quit that nagging and stuff like that. It just doesn't work that way. 1 Corinthians 13 again, love does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. And this is a real important one. Is this person leading me or influencing me towards unrighteousness or righteousness? Is this person leading me and influencing me towards God or away from God? It's worth that question because it's going to continue. Again, people change. I understand that. I came to the Lord, totally changed. The grace of God changed our direction. We're talking in a situation where I'm saying, turn to God early. Save yourself the pain and the trouble. Again, when you think this can work, you just keep moving forward. And there's a protection of the heart. And I'll say this again, girls, think about your dad's involvement in this. He is a protector. Now, your relationship with your father may be all messed up. I totally understand that. it might be a good opportunity to try to restore it before you get into the relationship with somebody else. I know the pain that's just in that thought. Okay, so I'm not trying to make light of that. But I've seen relationships with fathers restored over, Dad, will you help me figure out relationships with this guy? Okay, and he is, by God, created for that purpose, to be a helper. And so don't neglect your father that's there. But I also say the parents as a whole. Guys, are you bringing your parents into discussion? They're a help. You know, we've wanted to become independent and we pushed them away. This might be a good time to invite them back in. After all, girls, who's going to run the background check on this guy? You know, you're probably not going to do that, but there's some times where that's justified. You're definitely going to get to know one another better. You're going to be asking questions about what are your future hopes? What do you think about children? What do you think about finances? What about roles? What's it going to look like in our home? You're going to try to discover any non-optional areas. Okay? So you're going to talk about a lot of things. What I encourage you to do is try not to get into the conversation as if you're already married. You know, or like, well, when we're married, we'll have 3 kids and all this. You're still in a dating relationship. There's still an evaluation going on. If you want to move into engagement, then move into engagement and start personalizing and orchestrating how that's all going to look. But try to avoid that in the dating time, because it just accelerates things and creates some problems. Again, determine if this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. And if the answer is no, and hurt was minimized, then it was a success. That sounds strange, doesn't it? Sounds like a failed relationship. But no, it wasn't. Because you entered into it to determine something. And when the answer was no, you stepped back. Was there hurt? Sure there was hurt. Because there was hope. There was risk in stepping in there. But when you exit out of a relationship and the hurt was minimized, it was a success. Again, none of us enter into a relationship with that intent, but that would be better than carrying on in many cases. Okay? And again, I'll say that you could go right from independent to married tomorrow, and that person and that marriage can work, and that marriage can flourish, and that marriage can be happy and purposeful. You see my point? It's a choice. But when you're entering in, when you're participating in our culture's dating process, that would be the idea of using it for that way. Okay? Looking at God and looking at your goals and future. Again, you're going to build trust, and there's a lot of refining that continues going on. In the engagement, the focus, prepare for the marriage. Right on. Not the wedding. Yeah, you're going to prepare for the wedding, but prepare for the marriage. Wedding's a day. Marriage is a lifetime. So start preparing for that marriage, and I'll go right into counseling. Get into some counseling, marriage counseling, where people are probing into your lives. Uncovering and preparing you for that. I went to a marriage training conference, or marriage counseling training, and they said that 3 to 4 premarital counseling sessions increases the success rate of marriage by 40%. That's huge. So we've got the policy, if somebody's going to use this building for a wedding, they've got to go through 3 or 4 marriage counseling sessions, whether with us or with somebody else. It's just mandatory. It just makes too much sense. The idea in there is that somebody's going to be asking you questions and trying to get to know you and to identify the areas that you're going to run into, to prepare you a little bit for what that's like. They can't prepare you totally, but at least you'll go in with your eyes open. Because remember, your head's still in the clouds a little bit. And so somebody can come in and help you walk through that a little bit. There's obviously going to be a time for planning for the wedding, who to involve, how do you honor parents? Because remember, it's not just about the bride, but it's also about the parents. You're going to learn about financial costs when you prepare for the wedding. So I hope that you learned budgeting earlier, because you're going to need it right here, pretty big. And I'll tell you what, it's a big area of stress and trouble in marriages. It starts even before the wedding day. Think about 6 months later, okay? Think about 6 months later. What's your life, what's your day-to-day going to look like? And start those type of conversations. You don't know it all, but think about that and prepare for it. 1 Corinthians 7:28, but if you should marry or shall marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin should marry, she has not sinned. And yet such will have trouble in this life, and I'm trying to spare you. Okay? we know there's going to be some trouble coming up. Be prepared for it. Be able to endure it. And let love reign. 1 Corinthians 13, for the area of engaged, love is not provoked. You're going to have good opportunity to be provoked during this time, whether it be financial or it be in-laws. Okay? There's going to be some provocation going on, but love is not provoked. You're able to handle that well. And also, love does not act unbecomingly. And I'll reiterate the idea of the physical. You're not married yet. She's not your wife. She's not your husband until you're married. Okay? My son's engagement ended 3 months before the wedding day. Engagements break off. Jesus' parents on earth, Joseph was going to put away Mary privately, quietly, is what it says, during their engagement. Engagements do not always get to where you think they will go. Okay? You are not married till you're married. So protect yourself in the area of the physical. But also think about the wedding night itself. You know, the dance. Well, what about that first kiss? Love does not act unbecomingly. Do it in an appropriate way. Don't get drunk. That's a pretty easy one. Let's wrap up. It's been a long time. Relationships are expressions of love at various levels of intimacy. If you're married, you're going to focus on love is kind, and love endures all things. When you're engaged, love is not provoked. Love does not act unbecomingly. When you're dating, love does not take into account a wrong suffered. Love does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. In the independent stage, love is patient, and love does not seek its own. Things to work on, wherever you are. Here's some things I really want you to think about and work on. Remember what's great about where you are. And I think if you really focus on that over the coming days, that can really transform your life. It can really encourage you a lot. And be thankful to God for where you are. Find reasons to thank Him. You may have been anxious and really ready to move on, but learn how to do that. Make an action plan. Start figuring out what it is that you want to make decisions on while you're sane, when you're away from those emotions. And be focused. Be focused on what you're supposed to be doing right now. Whether you're married, you're engaged, you're dating, or you're independent, focus on what you should be focused on. I'll end with this. Benefits of a long marriage. On their 50th wedding anniversary and during the dinner celebrating it, Byron was asked to give his friends a brief account of the benefits of a marriage of such long duration. Tell us, Byron, just what is it you have learned from all those wonderful years with your wife? Byron responded, well, I've learned that marriage is the best teacher of all. It teaches you loyalty, forbearance, meekness, self-restraint, and a great many other qualities you wouldn't have needed if you'd have stayed single. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you so much for this time. I thank you for your word and the guidance. I thank you for the way you've redeemed my life from all the mistakes I made. I pray that some of the things that I've learned from my life and from my kids and from others will benefit all these here today. I pray, Father, that you'll move them in certain ways that'll help them, that'll glorify you, that'll restore relationships that are hurting right now, and that'll prepare a way for solid relationships in the future. Lord God, whether each person here gets married or not, I pray that you will be their central focus. You'll be the source of their joy. I give thanks to you through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.